Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneider, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. And I want to start the show today a little differently by really thanking everyone who's made an effort to like these videos that you're watching on YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube page, and those who have our podcast on auto download. I've seen some steam. Our YouTube videos, the last three we've released, have all gotten 5,000 views or more after we're sitting in the 2,000 range. And I'm going to attribute that extra 3,000 views to people hitting the like button. I think what happens is when you hit the like button for us, it moves it up the algorithm. It puts it on people's pages that may not have seen the video. And then we get to showcase our content, and what its value is to them is decided by them after they view it. But if they don't ever get a chance to view it, they will never be able to see if it's something they like. So I think so I give thanks to you and those who have hit the like button. Please, if you're watching this and you do enjoy this content, just hit the like button. It's going to take you a second, hopefully less. Some people are very quick with their trigger fingers on the keyboards, keyboard warriors, as I might call them. I myself am somewhat of a keyboard warrior. And just hit that like button, please, and subscribe. Boom, boom. 1, 2, like and subscribe. Please like this video. But let's start today. We're going to talk about Nick's takeaways from the Giants' Monday practice at training camp. We know training camp's a little different these days. No videos, so we didn't get to see too much. So the one-on-one drills were allowed to be videotaped. But Nick, I heard today, and we'll get to some of your takeaways from practice in a moment, but I heard today you had a little fun moment at training camp. So what happened?
Yeah, a little bit of a fun moment. So all of us media, we are waiting for Coach Brian Daboll's pre-practice press conference. And he's walking out, and I see him out of the corner of my eye walking. He's coming towards me because he has to get to the podium. So I see him. So I'm starting to get my notes ready, get my pen out, ready to take some notes. And then I feel a tap on my shoulder. Lo and behold, I turn around. It's Coach Daboll, and he goes, "Nice mustache, buddy." And I'm like, "Thanks, Coach." And that's how he started his press conference right before the cameras got rolling. He complimented yours truly, Nick Filato, on the mustache that I did trim before practice. He would have probably loved it if I did. And he started getting a little unruly at that point, though.
Yeah, well, you know what? You may now be known as the mustache guy to Brian Daboll, which is great because it's like the old peacocking theory when it comes to like dating. Yeah. Like you want to be the peacock. You want to be the one who stands out. So now, like in his mind, he may just know, a bunch of Giants reporters, some I'm sure he's worked with over the years, but you're new to the beat, at least, officially new to the beat. So now he might just keep seeing you, and then be like, oh, that's the mustache guy. And eventually that's Nick Filato, the mustache guy. And then maybe he'll check out your work, and maybe you'll get a chance to ask him a question that you want to ask him, and he'll be like, oh, that dude knows football. I think this is all like in my mind how this is going to play out in a very positive way. So hopefully it does play out that way, Nick.
And then he'll be like, you know what I have to do? I have to go on the Big Blue Banter podcast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't even take it to the next level because I don't think he's gone on any Giants podcast ever. But thank you again to those who tune in and help make this happen. Nick, I want to start with your key takeaways from practice, but I want to start with a play that I saw you tweet about. A lot of people tweet about, but we don't have video on it this time. And it's apparently a 70-yard touchdown pass in the second play of team drills from Daniel Jones to Jalin Hyatt. So why don't you walk us through that play? I want you to describe for me the throw, the pocket, and Jalin Hyatt specifically, his route, and where was the ball placement? How did he factor into that play?
Yeah. So the media, we were standing behind the defense. So I didn't see the pass get completed. I don't know exactly how much separation Jalin Hyatt had, but I do know it was a deep play action shot. Daniel Jones hit his back foot. There was a nice pocket. I would say, generally speaking, today, the Giants defense did get a decent amount of pressure on the offense, although the Giants offensive line did a good job opening up holes for Eric Gray, Devin Singletary, and Tyrone Tracy. And those were the three backs that were really receiving carries. And that new guy, Dante Miller, I didn't see him out there today. And there were a couple injuries. I go and check out my Big Blue View report. I have all the injuries listed of guys who left practice, guys who did not practice. Nothing too significant as of right now. We're still waiting on some word. But to circle back to that play, you see Daniel Jones hit his back foot, and then I just see 13 streaking across the field. And I don't know who exactly was assigned to cover him, but Dane Belton was trying to rally and get to his near hip. Daniel Jones slung the football. I don't know if it's completed or not, because the defense is in my way, all I saw was a bunch of offensive linemen put their hands up and go, woo! And then I saw the ref rule it a touchdown. So Jalin Hyatt used that speed to outrun Dane Belton. Not sure if it was a communication error or what exactly happened, but it was a great way for the New York Giants offense to start off their team period with their second play. First play was a quick RPO slant glance route to Darius Slayton that went for about 5 or 6 yards.
Yeah, and anytime you hear 70-yard touchdown, at least for me, I get really excited. Deep crosser off play action. You've seen Jalin Hyatt's progression as a route runner throughout this training camp, I believe, and it's hopefully something that's going to help the Giants create big plays this season. Timing's got to be down, of course. I will let you guys get to Nick's article on Big Blue View for the injuries. I tried to find them, but I don't want to spend too much time looking throughout this article. It's an excellent article. It has a lot of clips from practice from the one-on-one drills, which I think are definitely worth your time, but I have not located the injury breakdown yet.
Yeah, I can briefly run through exactly. It's just in the overview section. Cornerback Drew Phillips did not practice today. Brian Dable in the pre-practice press conference said that he was sore after Sunday's practice. Carter Coughlin and Jalen Mills still didn't practice. Drew Lock was out. Javarius Owens, Deontay Johnson didn't practice. I don't know what was going on with this, but this was a development. I don't believe we should be overly concerned because there wasn't a huge scene, but I'm sure we'll receive word tomorrow. John Runyon and Jake Kubis, who relieved John Runyon, both left practice a little bit early. Jack Stoll returned to practice. Lawrence Cager also returned to practice, but on an interception in the red zone that would have been an obvious sack by Azeez Ojulari and Kayvon Thibodeau. Lawrence Cager fell down at the catch point, would have been a sack again at the catch point, and then ended up leaving practice with a limp. The end of that play, Tyler Nubin intercepted the pass in red zone drills against Daniel Jones. So Lawrence Cager, to me, he looked okay on the one-on-ones prior to that injury. Remember, this is his first practice back from an injury. But I watched him in team period, and I felt like he just looked maybe a step slow, and then he got hurt on that play where Tyler Nubin came away with a red zone interception.
Yeah, the injuries are starting to pile up a little bit and get a little concerning for me, Nick. I'll explain to you why I'm a little concerned with some of them. And obviously you didn't mention it, but I think everybody knows it. Yeah. Malik Neighbors did not practice today after twisting his ankle, though we don't really know what the extent of that injury is because it's Brian Dable-led Giants team, and they don't give any information on injuries. Not that a lot of coaches do, by the way. So it's not just he's alone in that. But I remain, I guess, cautiously optimistic on that front. He said he doesn't think it's a fracture, but he didn't really confirm it's not a fracture, didn't give us x-ray results. But until I see the dreaded Malik, report from Rappaport or Schefter, Malik Neighbors set for an MRI, I'm not going to worry. If I do see that report, I am going to be very, very worried. And I hope that's not the case with Malik Neighbors. We'll find that out later.
Yeah, if it's any consolation at all with that, Brian Dable didn't seem too worried in today's press conference. He was kind of prevaricating a little bit with the did he have an MRI or did he have x-rays? But he was like, I don't think it's a fracture. And he seemed kind of certain in the way he said it. But again, we'll have to wait and see. It didn't seem like all the information was sorted out when Brian Dable was giving us that information.
Yeah, I haven't done the stats or run the numbers on it, Nick, but I would imagine that Dable and most coaches are not 100% when it comes to this stuff. Coaches tend to be very overly optimistic when it comes to injuries, at least what they're reporting to the media. We don't know what they say behind closed doors. But yes, I'm not sounding any alarm bell right now. I'm hoping that Malik Neighbors is fine. We need him to be fine. Now, I will say this, Nick. I think it's very unlikely now that Malik Neighbors will play this preseason game, which is a little disappointing to me just because I wanted to see his timing with Daniel Jones and I wanted him to get real live reps. That's now out the window. I'm pretty sure. I mean, crazier things have happened, but I doubt he'll play in that game. But Jones has been confirmed to play in that game by Brian Dable. I'm really excited to see him on the football field again for the first time in a long time for real snaps against a pass rush. So that will be exciting. Drew Phillips injury, hopefully it's just soreness. The Deontay Johnson one is one I wanted to touch on with you, Nick, because that one, and we'll get to other takeaways from practice, but I want to talk injuries first. That one concerns me a little bit because it sounded to me more like it was week to week when Dable talked about it.
I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to enter a parallel universe or go through some elaborate labyrinth just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Turns out, it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. It's easy to switch to. The website has a good interface. I have a couple buddies who have recommended this to me. They speak highly of Mint Mobile. Get started, go to mintmobile.com/BBB. That is 3 Bs. There you'll see that right now, all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. Plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/BBB. That's mintmobile.com/BBB. 3 Bs, triple B. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/BBB. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
You ever feel sluggish or out of focus? Are you stressed? Has your digestive system caused discomfort or flatulence like a certain co-host on this podcast during a live stream? If so, you should check out AG1. When I started drinking AG1 daily, I could feel a real difference in my daily health. I had more energy, I was better off at the gym, and I could focus on my work in a much more efficient manner. That's because AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that supports your body's universal needs like gut optimization, stress management, and immune support. Since 2010, AG1 has led the future of foundational nutrition, continuously refining their formula to create a smarter, better way to elevate your baseline health. Not only did I replace my multivitamin with AG1, but I love that every scoop also includes prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for gut support. I recommend AG1 to all my family and friends because AG1 has a team of doctors and scientists that formulate around the latest science and maintains high quality standards within the industry. Even my friends have started drinking AG1, and they always tell me how energetic they feel and how it's helped them out at the gym, and also it's helped them manage their stress levels. That's why we're happy to have AG1 as our partner. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs when you first subscribe. Go to drinkag1.com/banter. That's drinkag1.com/banter to check it out. Our mental and physical well-being is of the utmost importance. Whether you're a world-class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all need to take that very seriously. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring this episode of the Big Blue Banter podcast. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or EE System. If you haven't heard of the EE System yet, you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Whether you're here in New York, New Jersey, Arizona, if you will, or hundreds of other locations across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. Interested in experiencing the EE System technology for yourself? Go to unifiedhealing.com/banter to learn more and find a center near you. That's UNIFYD healing.com/banter. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment. And before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, include EE System.
And real quick apology, had a little bit of a mic issue at the beginning of the show. It's corrected now. I know 2 episodes ago, we had a little bit of a tinny mic sound, somebody said, and I believe it corrected itself in the John Schmelk interview. You can check that out and notice the difference, but working to improve audio at all times here. But back to Deontay Johnson, Nick. What scares me a little bit is if it is of the week-to-week variety. He's been so phenomenal so far in camp, steady drumbeat, great preseason game. It makes me want to believe that he's locked into a roster spot. But at the same time, there's a lot of tough decisions coming up at receiver, interior defensive line. Um, where do you stand on that? Do you think this is going to be okay? Because I know Dan Duggan brought this up and it really put it in my mind that, like, missing this amount of time, if it is ultimately a 2-week injury, could actually play a role in him making the roster. What are your thoughts on Deontay Johnson, the impressive linebacker so far?
Duggan nailed it. I mean, it's tough. Obviously, if he was fully healthy, he would have an inside track and almost be a certainty to make the roster with the way he's played throughout training camp. And he's earning first team reps. And they're not just the first team reps to say, hey, let's see how he can hold up. They're actual first team reps because Micah McFadden was also out, but he was creating turnovers with those reps, coming away with interceptions. I think Deontay Johnson has had a great summer. This is very unfortunate, but it's hard to tell. Right? If he's not fully recovered by the end of preseason, the Giants might put him on the PUP, the PUP, right? Like there's a lot of different ways the Giants can go with it. We just got to wait and see if he gets back and gets healthy. I think the Giants and Shane Bowen do really like him though. And him earning those first team reps consistently through the last, I would say, week before that injury was something that was kind of catching a lot of people's eyes. I mean, he's been one of the darlings of camp so far. So this is an unfortunate speed bump. Hopefully he can just get back healthy and maybe get in with the Jet game. I don't know how optimistic it looks with that since he's week to week, but yeah, it's tough to say right now how certain it looks with him making this roster, but he still has impressed though through camp. So there's that.
Yeah, and I like the point you made there about potential for him to be on the PUP list if it lingers. Well, hopefully he's back before that. Safety Javarius Owens, you mentioned, also missed practice. He's had a nice little steady drum beat with a really good preseason game and some really good practices. Hopefully he gets back. I want to talk about two other big injuries since we haven't talked about this yet since we last recorded. The first is Evan Neal activated off the PUP list. And John Michael Schmitz as well, not off PUP, just slowly working his way back into form. I want to know if you've seen anything from either of those two, if either of them are in team drills yet working, and if you think there's any chance we might see any of either of those two in the preseason game.
So I'm hoping we see John Michael Schmitz against the Jets and Evan Neal. Count them both out right now against Houston. We're not even seeing them in team periods. We're seeing them in individual drills. I don't even know how much contact they're really doing in the indie drills, like little bit stuff. They're moving around well, but I wouldn't count on seeing either of them this Saturday against Houston.
Okay, a little disappointing, but not unexpected. I didn't really expect either of them to play. All right, let's talk about some of the different personnel groupings you saw in today's practice. I noted you mentioned that within your recap on Big Blue View.
Yeah, man, we were seeing a lot of 12, a lot of 13, a lot of creative and unique rushing styles. And I know, I think Dan Duggan asked Brian Dable over the weekend on a Zoom press conference about the different rushing attempts and rushing styles that the Giants used in the preseason game. And Brian Dable actually gave like a 3-minute answer on it, and it was freaking beautiful. He was talking about actual football terminology and expounding on how you utilize the run and the passing game and 3-step, 2-step, 7-step, 5-step, RPO, and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, this is an awesome answer. I'm seeing a lot of diverse rushing from the New York Giants. It's not just like inside zone and duo and halfback stretch. We have misdirections. We have halfback tosses. We have options. We have RPOs. We have zone reads. We have designed quarterback runs off misdirection. Tommy DeVito had a play action week 4, 2022 Daniel Jones type of touchdown against the Chicago Bears, against the second team defense in the goal line period. And it was one of those plays where the entire defense reacted like it was halfback stretch. And I had a direct line of sight at Tommy DeVito. I saw Tommy DeVito just put the ball by his leg and just waltz into the end zone. Not one defender tracked what Tommy DeVito was doing. So there's a lot of creativity to what the Giants are doing and how they're using 12 and 13 personnel, how they are able to use the diverse skill set of the Giants tight end position group and leverage that to say, hey, I'm out here in 13 personnel, but Theo Johnson and Lawrence Cager are not attached to the line of scrimmage, and they are off to the side. They are possibly in a stack. They are split out by the numbers. There's just a lot of creativity for how the Giants are using these personnel groupings, and I certainly am looking forward to that as we move forward. I'll also say the Daniel Bellinger effect. They've been using him in I formation a lot, and I believe that's constituted as 21 personnel, even though he is a tight end, because he is a tight end and a fullback. So it's interesting to see how the Giants are responding to that. Now, Micah McFadden didn't play a ton of snaps in team period. He had one really nice stick at the line of scrimmage in team period against Tyrone Tracy, where he met him and you felt like the physicality, but it was mainly Isaiah Simmons who was out there with the first team linebacking unit when the Giants were in base personnel, along with Ryder Anderson, Nacho. Dexter Lawrence played a lot of team period. He didn't really do that all that much over the last week or two. So we're starting to see Micah McFadden get ramped up a little bit more. I'm hoping I don't know how much he'll play in this next game, but by week 1, I'm hoping that he will be ready to go, because now with Deontay Johnson down, I don't know if Isaiah Simmons is going to be that like full-time linebacker. Isaiah Simmons is also taking first team reps as a nickel because Drew Phillips wasn't there. And I've watched Isaiah Simmons on third team. He's out there. So that guy's just gobbling up snaps at this point on Shane Bowen's defense.
Yeah, a lot of guys. It feels like some attrition has finally started to hit the Giants in these training camp practices. It's not that like there's a ton of crazy bad injuries, but there's been a lot of nicks and knacks, and a lot of guys are expected and playing more of a role, second, third, sometimes even first team than they maybe anticipated. And just a little quick cheat code thing or cheat sheet type thing for those. I know people say we sometimes use jargon that is hard to pick up on, or we may not know it and we don't always explain it. So here's a cheat sheet for knowing what Nick or I is referring to when we say 13 personnel or 12 personnel. So use the number before the personnel. So if it's 13, that's number 13, or 12, that's number 12. And that first number within that, so the 1, means how many backs are on the field. So if you hear 11 or 12 or 13 or 10, that means 1 running back is on the field. If you hear 21, that means 2 running backs on the field. The second number, the 13, the 3 and the 13, or the 12 and the 12, or the 1 and the 11, or I'm sorry, the 2 and the 12. That's the number of tight ends who are on the field. And then obviously if it's something like 10 personnel, that means 1 back, 0 tight ends. And that means you can use the remaining number to know how many receivers are on the field. So if it's 10 personnel, it's 4 receivers. If it's 11 personnel, that's 3 receivers. 12 personnel, 1 receiver, and obviously 13 personnel, and so on and so forth from that regard. So that's just a little cheat way to know that. But anyway, let's jump around practice, Nick. There's a few things that I want to discuss with you. I'm kind of going to jump around and get to a bunch of different things. I saw some notable reporting from you on the defensive line, the interior defensive line, specifically Ryder Anderson. Let's start with him.
There were 2 times where I don't know exactly what happened. I saw Shane Bowen, though, running quite a bit of stunts throughout this practice. A stunt is a gap exchange, and call them twists. It's probably a little bit more apt when you're talking about rushing the passer. It's when you have a penetrator and a looper. The penetrator is going to basically run into an offensive lineman, and the looper, who is going to be usually directly over that offensive lineman who is being run into, will loop around the ass of the penetrator. It's a way to create a free rusher. Well, twice I saw Ryder Anderson go into the pocket right at Tommy DeVito. He looked basically unblocked, and he just started celebrating because you can't hit the quarterback. So he just started like jumping up and down, screaming, because it would have been a sack. So I felt like he jumped out in those drills. I don't know if it was him or DJ Davidson, but there was another second team rep where Tommy DeVito dropped back, threw a pass, knocked down at the line of scrimmage by one of those 2 players. Again, I felt like the pass rush in today's practice got the best of the Giants' protection. A lot of that manifested on the second and third team, but it also was pretty evident on the first team, whereas the offensive line did a better job blocking up front for the rushing attack. I felt like Devin Singletary, man, he was getting reps with the second team. I think that was to probably test the second team defensive backs, the second team linebackers, second team defensive line. It's not a referendum on Devin Singletary or anything like that. But Devin Singletary, he's quick. He's smart. He sees the hole as it opens up, before it opens up. He really understands how to read his blocks. I don't know what his workload is going to be. I think when Tyrone Tracy is ready, Tyrone Tracy, he will be put into this lineup, and this won't be like a 70, 80% Devin Singletary, but early on, it's probably going to be a lot of Devin Singletary. Like wherever he's going in fantasy drafts, like I think he's going to get a lot of workload, and he's probably going to pay off as a target. I know you're the fantasy guy. You're the one who works for CBS, but I don't know exactly where his ADP is, but he is a player that I'm like, yo, this guy is going to be valuable to this offense, especially
I'll have no response to that one, Nick, because then that'll technically mean I didn't talk about fantasy at all in this, and so all the haters in their comments can just come to you and blame you for once. So I'll take that one. I'll take this little L. No, just kidding. As far as Devin Singletary goes, my quick take on fantasy is I don't trust where he's going to score his points from. I think it would have to be a high reception total. I don't see him as a high touchdown guy in 2024. So it kind of feels like a dead zone back to me, despite him maybe getting a ton of snaps and a ton of carries. Could be looking at some 60, 70-yard games with only a little bit of receptions and not a touchdown. So it scares me a little bit from that standpoint. But he's going so late that who cares?
That's
He's
my
like
point.
free.
It's all
Like
about the
free.
ADP. Yeah.
Yeah, it's free. I just don't see him paying off too much high, like the ceiling.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I like other guys there from a ceiling standpoint. But let's circle it back here because people hate fantasy talk. We know that. The only thing they hate more fantasy is golf. Let me say this, though. Remember what you said last show about, talk about golf in the comments if you like. Overwhelming majority liked the golf talks, shockingly. There were a lot of positive golf comments in there, maybe one negative. So just goes to show, Nick, stop focusing. This is more of commentary for me, Nick. Stop focusing on the haters. Don't let the haters own any real estate in your mind. It's like the loud minority instead of the silent majority. Let's let the silent majority rule. Let's get back to Giants talk, though. I want to hear about another interior defensive lineman, somebody who's kind of steady drumbeat moving up our rankings or eyes as we move forward to the season. And that's Elijah Chapman, a player who, again, made Bruce Feldman's freak list as he, quote unquote, called him the strongest player in college football, maybe the strongest player in college football. Brian Dable talked a little bit about him today, and now he's starting to earn some first-team reps. So talk a little bit about what you saw from Chapman.
Yeah, he was earning a little bit last week as well. Timmy Horn received some first-team reps too. I didn't see a play necessarily that Elijah Chapman made in practice that made me go, oh, it's just the fact that he's receiving these first-team reps, and it seems like the coaching staff really trusts him at this point. You heard Dre Patterson, I put it up on Twitter, rave about his low leverage and how he's the strongest player on the team and how calling him little is very stupid, how it's just not a smart thing to do because he's a big guy. He's just short and he has long arms. And there are a lot of pros to being that stature, especially with the quickness that he has off the snap. So that's all what Dre Patterson was saying. He still said, oh, he has a long way to go. But if I'm a betting man, if there's a player on the defense who's going to earn one of those last roster spots, it's going to be Elijah Chapman. I think he actually does have a lot of value. And I like how Shane Bowen is rotating a lot of these players who are on the fringe of the roster into the first team to see how they're performing against Greg Van Roten and Austin Schlottman. And by the way, we actually saw some Greg Van Roten right guard snaps. Schlottman played some center. Van Roten started at center, and then he moved to right guard, and then Schlottman would come in and be that starting center. We're just waiting for John Michael Schmitz to come back, and once John Michael Schmitz comes back, it seems very likely that it's going to be Greg Van Roten starting at right guard. Obviously, Aaron Stinney is still in the mix as well. So I wanted to kind of update the audience on what's happening along the offensive line as the Giants are still sitting here juggling, seeing what exactly they have as training camp and preseason wind down.
It is crazy that we're juggling again on the offensive line, just like last offseason, I should say. And that doesn't even take into account, like, what's the Evan Neal situation going to be?
Yeah.
I will say this about Evan Neal, who was activated off PUP. I really liked his interview yesterday with Giants media. I thought he came off very humble. And I think overall, when it comes to Evan Neal, he had one really bad moment with the media. Obviously, the flipping burgers thing was a horrible moment for him. Stupid thing to say. He knows that. But other than that, I feel like he's been pretty humble, and I think his work ethic is good. It's just a matter of, can he play well on the field? And I'll say this before, a lot of people, Nick, have just ruled this out. I tweet about Evan Neal, and I get the same replies from the same people like, he's done. Just cut him. Just trade him for a 6th-round pick. This guy's just done. And I'm just like, you might be right. But at the same time, if you're crediting Carm Brasillo for helping turn around this second and third team offensive line like we saw in the preseason game, and for really getting them to play together, who's to say he can't do the best work that's possibly to be done with Evan Neal? That's still similar. That's still possible. And there's just no one with the upside of Evan Neal on this roster. I'm sorry, Jermaine Illuminor doesn't have that kind of upside, and neither does Greg Van Roten or anyone, in my opinion, at the guard position. Because you could say, is he a guard? He's big. He played guard at Alabama. And he played it at a high level at Alabama. So I just think from a ceiling standpoint, I'm not ready to rule out the guy with the best ceiling outside of Andrew Thomas on this entire offensive line.
No, I agree. But circling back to the defensive front, I felt like Azeez Ojulari had a great practice. There were about probably 2 sacks. One of them might have went to Kayvon Thibodeau, who also had a very good practice, had a stop at the line of scrimmage, could have been a TFL. Isaiah Simmons and Azeez Ojulari also had a tackle for a loss on a halfback stretch play where they just both met Devin Singletary. I believe it was Singletary, might have been Tracy in the backfield. So it's good to see that defensive front play with that sort of fire, right? Even though they're not great in the final 2 periods against the run, more of that was towards the interior. and I couldn't see exactly who was at fault. I'm going to imagine it wasn't Dexter Lawrence, but whoever the defensive lineman was that was playing alongside Dexter Lawrence, I couldn't really make out who it was. I think they were rotating the Chapman and the Horn and the Ryder Andersons of the world in at that point. But again, without the tape, it's really hard to discern exactly what happened. But I'm just happy to see holes being opened up that allowed Devin Singletary to get up to the second level, because I believe he's a more slippery back than he's probably given credit for. And we know Tyrone Tracy has that in his arsenal. And I would say this, man, Eric Gray, after that preseason game, he's got a little pep in his step. He's getting the football. And once he gets to the line of scrimmage, he's one cut at this point. He had 2 touchdowns in this practice.
Nice.
Now they were both at the goal line, essentially. Like, I think they were within the 5-yard line, but it wasn't like just straight in, right? Like, he had to make somebody miss or just angle his body to avoid contact. So it does seem like Eric Gray is also moving with a different speed at the moment, a different confidence.
That's good to hear, because the Giants have a lot of talent that I like at the running back position, and we're going to have to see how it all plays out when the regular season comes. I want to ask you, since you were at practice and you got eyes on this, give me a breakdown of Daniel Jones and what you saw from him in team periods and all of the periods, from ball placement standpoint, timing and rhythm standpoint, within the pocket, comfortability, pocket presence, velocity, all of those things. I'd like to hear from somebody who was there watching him throw a football.
Yeah, Daniel Jones looked fine out there. He looked like Daniel Jones. He threw a couple really good balls. I wouldn't say the offense was the crispest they've been in a passing attack, but I felt like Daniel Jones was maneuvering the pocket well. He had one play where he had like 3.5 seconds to throw the football. And I looked at Ed and I was like, would that have been a sack? I don't think, because it was a long time. Like, I was sitting there like, holy crap, like, this play is going on, but it didn't seem like anybody was even close to Daniel Jones. So the protection was up, and then he completed a pass along the sideline to Darius Slayton. He was 13 of 21. And that's with 2 deliberate, I'm going to throw it out of bounds because it's 2-minute drill and I want to stop the clock. And that does not include the 2 spikes that he had to stop the clock in that. But 2 of those incompletions were just good decisions by him to say, I got to conserve the clock. I need to throw this out of bounds and not make a mistake, because the defense is doing their job covering up the New York Giants wide receiver. So overall, I've been pleased with what Daniel Jones has shown. In the one-on-ones, he didn't connect on every throw. Not every throw was perfect, but he was throwing catchable balls, and he threw the 1 pick to Jason Pinnock. I would say maybe you need to put a little bit more touch on that. Daniel Bellinger had a step on Pinnock. Pinnock did a very good job undercutting. I think Pinnock is sneaky. He knows what he's doing in those one-on-one drills when he shows a quarterback, hey, this guy's open, but he's so athletic that if you don't put enough touch to layer it over the top of Pinnock, he's going to climb the ladder and intercept the ball. And that's what he did. And that was one of the first plays in the one-on-one period. But overall, I've been pleased with Jones.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is his first practice in a while without Malik Neighbors on the field, and he responded in a big way. Also connected on that 70-yard touchdown to Jalin Hyatt, showcasing he may not need Neighbors on the field at all times, though. That would be devastating to create big plays and explosive plays. So we hope that will continue to carry over. What were some of your other takeaways from practice that I missed in the rundown there? Anything from the individual drills or just overall?
Couple nice goal line passes. One was a touchdown to Jalin Hyatt where there was a pick on Nick McLeod and Jalin Hyatt just came free. I'm not sure if Nick McLeod expected there to be banjo switch there. Banjo switch means if I'm aligned over Jalin Hyatt and he goes inside, I'm passing him over to Dan, who was inside of me. And then I am assuming the receiver who was going to the outside. So it was a little unclear if that's what Nick McLeod expected, but it was a nice pick route, and Jalin Hyatt just walked in. Daniel Jones delivered the football. Another negative play by Jones was the one that I brought up with the Lawrence Cager injury that ended up going intercepted, but he would have been sacked like 2 seconds before that by Kayvon and Azeez Ojulari. But yeah, and then there's a lot of creative stuff with the tight end usage. I think it's going to be an interesting storyline we're going to cover throughout the season is how they deploy these tight ends. Saw another tight end screen to Theo Johnson, who went for like 15 yards. Great block by Jack Stoll out there. Was in 12 personnel. Felt like Jack Stoll, he had a one-on-one rep. I put it up on Twitter, dude, where he shook Dane Belton. And Dane Belton is a good player, man. Dane Belton's a very good player. I talked with him after practice and just talked a lot about the leadership role that he is assuming, even though he's just a 23-year-old, the differences between Shane Bowen's system and Wink Martindale's system, and how this is a much more, split field, how it relies a little bit more on your eyes. I think that plays really well into his skill set. Also asked him to describe Iowa State in one word, and he said losers, which I absolutely appreciated. But Dane Belton lost on that Jack Stoll rep in the one-on-one. And it was a beautiful, I don't know if you saw it, shake at the top of his route. And that's something I'm noticing. I'm not sure if Mike Groh is really, along with Tim Kelly, is assisting Tim Kelly with how to create separation and maximize separation at the top of one's break, because some of these tight ends are doing that. You see it from Lawrence Cager earlier in camp, saw it from Jack Stoll, seen it from Daniel Bellinger. And we've seen it a lot from Jalin Hyatt throughout this camp. That's one area of his game that he's definitely taken to another level, is the ability to maximize his separation, not just through speed, but also through his wide receiver nuance. And that's a testament to Mike Rowe. But I just wanted to give my tip of the cap to Jack Stoll.
And we were talking about him a little bit earlier this offseason, a player who has better movement skills than people realize.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what happens. Injuries play a factor in all of these camp breakdown. And I was laughing a little bit earlier, Nick, because if I had said what you said and you didn't even realize what you said when you were describing banjo coverage.
Banjo switch means if I'm aligned over Jalin Hyatt and he goes inside, I'm passing him over to Dan, who is inside of me. Dan, who is inside of me. Inside of me.
But all Nick Filato jokes aside, let's talk about just any other key takeaways you had from practice, or maybe even, you mentioned you had a conversation with Dane Belton after, and you touched briefly on what he said the differences were in the system. But anything you picked up maybe from post-practice interviews or talking to players or hearing these kinds of things?
Not necessarily, because they had John Michael Schmitz up at the podium, and he doesn't say anything of note. Yeah, he's very close-lipped, John Michael Schmitz. And then they had Drew Lock, but I missed the Drew Lock interview because I was with Dane Belton. So sure. I didn't really get to see what exactly was said by Drew Lock. I heard there were a few interesting nuggets. You could check that out at the Giants YouTube if anybody wants to. But I'll say this, I was in a commercial for the Eli Manning show.
Oh, really?
They needed extras. So
nice.
Yeah, they asked me and I was like, yeah, sure. And all I had to do was sit there and say like, Eli. And then he called on Kim Jones. Kim Jones asked a scripted question and they called on somebody else and they called on somebody else. And then Eli left, but it was cool to wait around and just see Eli like directly from 5 feet away from me. And I had to act like a reporter trying to ask a question.
That is really cool. See one of our idols growing up, Eli Manning. Yeah, to this day, my favorite Giants player ever for me. Though there are other players who were in the mix. I mean, Justin, that we lived through, Justin Tuck, Michael Strahan, just to name a few, OCU and Yor. These are all some of the best ever. But
who's your favorite obscure Giant?
Obscure.
One that's like, wait, really?
Yeah. Off the top of my head, my favorite obscure Giant, like Jabril Wilson would be one of them, but he wouldn't be like Vika Mitchell would be one of them. But I don't know if these would be the exact calls for me, but they would definitely be up there. Offensive line, is there even anyone I could even call on? Because everyone from the 2007-8 units were known players and they were not considered obscure. And then after that, they really didn't have anyone good on the offensive line for the last 10 to 15 years. And if they did, we knew who they were. So nothing there. You would think maybe tight. Like I could go with like Kevin Boss, but I wouldn't call that obscure, or Jake Ballard, but I wouldn't call that obscure either. So I probably have to lean on Kavika and Jabril.
Yeah, see, I'm going way more obscure than that.
Let's hear it.
Emmanuel McDaniel.
Oh, wow. You went really deep.
This is like, 8-year-old Nick Filato.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I like that guy.
I used to like, okay, I got one. Felipe Sparks.
Okay, yeah.
But I swear to God, at that stage of my life, I was so young that I probably just liked him because of his name, if I'm going to be honest. Like I don't
maybe with mine. Emmanuel McDaniel, that rolls off the tongue.
Another name based like by 8-year-old kids. Yeah, but I'm going with Felipe Sparks. What a name. Felipe Sparks for a corner. Just awesome. Sparks as a last name for a football player is unbelievably good.
Yeah.
But anyway, sounds like we hit everything that you mainly took away from these practices or from this practice.
Yeah, I'll say a couple more things, man. Tommy DeVito is getting all that he can handle right now because he was in second and third team. I desperately wanted to see some Tyree Jackson quarterback snaps. We didn't get to see that at all, but Tommy, he looked solid, man. I mean, he had a couple nice seam balls to Daniel Bellinger. Now he's still holding on to the football a little bit too long, but you got to respect Tommy DeVito and the grind that he's putting himself through. He's vigorously competing for a roster spot right now, and it's going to be difficult for the Giants to keep 3, and Drew will probably be back at that point. But I just wanted to say that because when you can get that many snaps, even though he's a young player who proved something last year, it's still very valuable.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And it's clear that he's still, a favorite among Giants fans. When he entered the game in the preseason game last Thursday, he got a massive, massive cheer from the crowd. So still a fan favorite. I don't think that'll ultimately play any role in if he makes the roster or not. It's up to the Giants staff, brass, and him. But getting these reps is going to give him a shot, at least. I would personally definitely prefer to keep 2 quarterbacks on this roster. If I'm going to keep a third quarterback, I want him to have some developmental upside to be the long-term QB1. I personally do not believe that Tommy DeVito has QB1 upside long-term based on his processing and his limited arm talent, or what I deem to be his limited arm talent. And that's not a knock on him. I'm not saying he can make most of the NFL throws, but he strikes me as a Bo Nix type where it's just going to be condensed safeties down all the time if you have him starting as your quarterback over a long term. And I'm still concerned a little bit about defensive coordinators getting tape on him and adjusting to the things that he does well. But QB2, that he can definitely be that. I'm just okay passing that through the practice squad. And if you lose that, you lose that, though I doubt anyone's going to sign him to their active roster because no one can sign him to their practice squad. They would have to put him on their 53-man. Yeah. So to me, it feels like no risk at all to move him to the practice squad.
And Flott obviously didn't practice in this. So Nick McLeod was taking a ton of reps and looked solid from what I saw. I'm not sure if he was a victim of some of those catches deep because I couldn't see because the defense was in the way. But Nick McLeod's getting a lot that he can handle, which I absolutely love to hear. And one more thing, too, the New York Giants first team offense, they went into hurry up mode at the end of practice and try to get into field goal range. And Daniel Jones, this is when those incomplete passes, those two that sailed out of bounds happened. He led the Giants down the field and got them to the 40-yard line, the defense's 40-yard line, and set up a 60-yard field goal attempt for Graham Gano. And we were all like, oh, let's see if Graham's going to hit it. Is he going to hit it? Is he going to hit it? And they didn't kick it. And I was like, damn.
Why not?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Earlier. Why didn't they go for it?
They did the walkthrough.
Ran out of time?
Yeah. The time on the clock ran down. So they stopped the clock, but they were hitting.
No, I mean, like ran out of time in practice.
No. They just didn't kick it. Maybe they didn't want him trying that far to field goal. I'm a little unsure, but Wan'Dale Robinson was heavily featured in that role. A lot around the line of scrimmage for Wan'Dale Robinson, but on that drive, he was the guy going to the flat, catching the ball and just falling out of bounds. Just lightning quick. And you could see it in the one-on-ones too. He didn't do much deep in the one-on-one drills, but he was operating around the line of scrimmage and setting these DBs up and just uncovering very easily. And it's like, God damn, dude, you could be a very special player.
He could be in the right system with the right, passing game health. He could really be good just by getting open and getting the ball in his hands. If we get that kind of system going at some point with good anticipation, good timing. But anything else that we missed, or is that it for now?
Yeah, it's good to go, bro.
Okay. Well, thank you again for tuning in to the Big Blue Banter podcast. We hope you loved that John Schmelk interview. We thought it was a great deep dive, and I hope if not, go back and listen to it. These are the live camp reports from Nick. They're excellent. They're valuable, but keep it locked and loaded because more content is coming your way. And remember, for the preseason game coming up, we will be doing it like we did last time, not an immediate reaction video, but we'll watch the tape and we'll give you the all 22 film review takeaways like last time. So please, if you enjoyed the show, hit the like button, like, subscribe, download, subscribe, download. And that's what I'll leave you with today. Have a good rest of your day.